Imagine a world where the richest man on earth and a former president of the United States are not merely exchanging insults on social media, but are locked in a battle that could decide the very future of government money, technological progress, and the American dream itself. This is not science fiction. It's the real-life showdown between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and the outcome could transform how we drive, how we travel to space, and who truly steers the destiny of the United States for generations to come. At the core of this high-stakes drama are two larger-than-life figures: Elon Musk, the visionary force behind Tesla, SpaceX, and a constellation of other ventures, and Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, whose political influence and capacity for disruption are as formidable as ever. Their feud escalated dramatically when Trump, brimming with outrage, called for a sweeping federal investigation into what he labeled as giant subsidies funneled to Musk's vast business empire. With his signature showmanship, Trump declared, "Elon may get more subsidy than any human being in history, by far." He asserted that without the American taxpayer, Musk would be forced to close up shop, abandon his rockets, and return to South Africa. Trump didn't stop there. He suggested that axing Musk's subsidies could save the country a fortune, and insisted the Department of Government Efficiency, ironically nicknamed DOGE, should scrutinize every cent Musk receives from federal coffers. Musk, famously averse to backing down, immediately responded on his social platform, X. His reply was stark: "I am literally saying, cut it all, now." With those words, Musk threw down an audacious challenge, not just to his critics, but to the entire system of government support for innovation. He volunteered to forego all federal backing, daring anyone to test whether his companies could survive and thrive on their own. The stakes are monumental. Tens of billions of dollars in government contracts and subsidies, the future of electric transportation, America's lead in space, and the fundamental question of who wields real power in shaping tomorrow's economy. To understand why this standoff matters, let's rewind. For more than a century, the American government has been deeply involved in guiding the country's industrial and technological growth. In the 19th century, huge land grants and subsidies fueled the rise of the railroads. In the 20th century, federal investment created the interstate highway system, spurred the aviation industry, and, crucially, bankrolled the space race that put men on the moon. In the 21st century, the focus has shifted to clean energy, electric vehicles, and space commercialization. Tesla has become the face of the electric vehicle revolution, propelled by billions in loan guarantees and tax credits. SpaceX, meanwhile, is now NASA's indispensable partner, providing the only reliable American route to the International Space Station. These achievements, celebrated as triumphs of private enterprise, are also products of strategic government intervention. But the landscape is shifting once again. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, passed in the final days of 2017, slashed the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, unleashing a surge in corporate profits. However, this law is set to expire in 2025, plunging the future of corporate taxation into uncertainty. Adding to the complexity, the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 introduced an intricate web of eligibility requirements for federal tax incentives, making it harder for companies like Tesla to access the support that once fueled their expansion. On top of that, the latest Republican tax proposals for 2025 are floating a cap of $40,000 on state and local tax deductions. This move could upend the incentives landscape for both corporations and individuals, reshaping the financial calculus for everyone from tech giants to middle-class families. Amid these policy crosswinds, Elon Musk has quietly, and sometimes very publicly, become one of the most influential political actors in the country. In the current election cycle alone, Musk has contributed nearly $300 million to Republican campaigns, positioning himself not just as a titan of industry, but as a kingmaker able to shape the political process. His influence goes beyond campaign donations. Musk has openly threatened to fund primary challenges against lawmakers who support Trump's fiscal policies, signaling a willingness to leverage his immense fortune as a weapon in the ongoing struggle over America's economic future. Yet this debate over Musk's government support is far from one-sided. Dan Ives, a highly regarded technology analyst at Wedbush Securities, warns that the electric vehicle tax credit is nothing less than the lifeblood of the entire sector. In his words, any changes would create serious ripple effects across the entire industry. Without these credits, Tesla's competitive advantage could disappear overnight. and the momentum of the electric vehicle revolution could stall, precisely when global competitors, especially those in China and Europe, are accelerating their efforts. On the other hand, Maya McGuinness, president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, insists that extending Trump's tax cuts without a credible way to pay for them would send the national debt soaring, calling such a move fiscally irresponsible. She points out that the United States already faces a debt burden exceeding $30 trillion, a colossal sum that threatens to crowd out investment in infrastructure, research, and education for decades to come. The result is a tense balancing act with no easy answers. On one side, advocates argue that government incentives are necessary to spur innovation and maintain American leadership in critical industries. On the other, an increasingly vocal group of fiscal conservatives warns that endless subsidies and deficit-financed tax cuts could fatally weaken the country's long-term economic health. The debate is not just theoretical, it is playing out in real time, with jobs, investments, and America's global standing hanging in the balance. The political theatrics are as intense as any Hollywood blockbuster. Trump's suggestion that canceling contracts with SpaceX would save a fortune has drawn both applause and ridicule. Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie, known for his libertarian leanings, dismissed the idea as ridiculous. He pointed out that SpaceX is currently America's only ticket to the International Space Station, a reality that gives Musk enormous leverage. If SpaceX were sidelined, the United States would be forced to rely once again on Russian rockets or scramble to develop a new domestic alternative, both of which would be expensive, risky, and time-consuming. This is not a hypothetical threat. When NASA retired the space shuttle in 2011, the country spent nearly a decade paying Russia hundreds of millions of dollars per launch to ferry astronauts to the station. But the Musk-Trump feud is more than a clash of personalities. It is a microcosm of a much larger debate about the government's role in shaping the future. Should policymakers continue to nurture domestic champions like Tesla and SpaceX, or step back and let market forces determine who survives? John Helveston, a policy expert at George Washington University, notes that Tesla now faces fierce competition from both legacy automakers and a wave of new entrants, many of them backed by foreign governments determined to dominate the electric vehicle space. In this context, government support can mean the difference between American leadership and irrelevance. Let's examine the scale of government backing. Since its inception, Tesla has benefited from more than $4 billion in direct and indirect government support. This includes federal tax credits for buyers, zero-emission vehicle credits that Tesla sells to rivals, state-level grants, and subsidized loans. SpaceX, for its part, has secured a series of multi-billion-dollar contracts from NASA and the Department of Defense, making it the backbone of America's commercial space program. These sums far exceed the government support received by many earlier industrial titans, underscoring just how central public backing has become to the most ambitious technological projects of our age. But there are hidden costs. Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, a professor at the Yale School of Management, points out that Musk's personal fortune is inextricably tied to Tesla's stock price. If government incentives were suddenly withdrawn, Tesla's share price could plummet, wiping out hundreds of billions of dollars in market value and triggering a wider sell-off across the technology sector. The same goes for SpaceX, whose bold plans for Mars colonization and global satellite internet hinge on a steady pipeline of government contracts. It's a high-wire act. Success can breed dependence, and dependence can breed vulnerability. So, what are the possible outcomes if the government pulls the plug on subsidies and contracts? Consider the most pessimistic scenario. A sudden cutoff could bring Tesla's rapid growth to a screeching halt. Dan Ives warns that demand for electric vehicles could fall off a cliff, especially as automakers in China and Europe ramp up production with state backing. Tesla could be forced to raise prices, slow expansion, or even shut down some factories. SpaceX, meanwhile, could face delays or outright cancellations of key missions, setting back American ambitions in space by a decade or more. NASA would be left scrambling to find alternative launch providers, a process that, history shows, is fraught with cost overruns and technical setbacks. Yet there is a more optimistic scenario. If Musk's companies can thrive without government support, it would prove they are genuine engines of innovation, not just products of federal largesse. This could transform the culture of Silicon Valley, forcing other tech giants to compete on a truly level playing field and rewarding only the most efficient, adaptable, and resilient companies. Musk has repeatedly said he is ready to compete in a true free market environment, calling for an end to all subsidies, not only for his businesses, but for the entire industry. Is this bravado, or could he be the rare titan who actually flourishes without a government safety net? Some observers suggest the entire Musk-Trump feud is performance art, a high-profile distraction from deeper issues like America's swelling national debt, widening income inequality, and the looming disruptions posed by artificial intelligence and automation. As one industry insider joked, maybe this is all just theater designed to keep the public fixated on personalities instead of policies. But the consequences are very real. If Musk follows through on his threats to bankroll campaigns against Trump allies, it could upend the traditional power structure in Washington, accelerating the rise of corporate money in politics and triggering a political earthquake whose aftershocks would be felt for years. This is not the first time the United States has faced such crossroads. In the early 20th century, government investment was vital to building the railroads, highways, and aviation industry. During the Cold War, federal funding for NASA and its contractors put Americans on the moon and inspired an entire generation of scientists and engineers. Yet, these investments were always controversial, with critics warning of wasted money and the dangers of crony capitalism. What's different now is the sheer size and global reach of the companies involved. Today, American firms are not only competing with each other, but also with state-backed giants in China, Europe, and elsewhere. The stakes are higher, and the margin for error is smaller. So, what does all this mean for ordinary Americans? The clash over subsidies is not just about personal egos or a single company. It is a high-stakes referendum on the future of American innovation, and by extension, the country's place in the world. Should the government continue to invest in breakthrough technologies, even at the risk of picking winners and losers? Or should it trust the free market to allocate resources, even if that means other countries pull ahead? For investors, tech workers, and anyone concerned about the nation's direction, the implications are profound. Policy decisions in Washington can send shockwaves through the stock market, reshape entire job sectors, and influence everything from the cars we drive to the frontiers we explore. The lesson? Never assume government support is permanent. Diversify your skills, your investments, and your professional network, because the political winds can shift overnight. The industries favored today may fall out of grace tomorrow, and only those prepared for uncertainty will thrive. Practical advice? Stay nimble. If your career or your investments are tied to industries reliant on government support, make sure you have a plan B. Develop skills that are transferable across sectors. Build relationships outside your immediate field, and keep an eye on global trends, because as much as Washington matters, so too do Beijing, Brussels, and Silicon Valley. For Musk's companies, the path forward is anything but certain. Tesla and SpaceX have already demonstrated extraordinary resilience and a knack for disruptive innovation. But their continued dominance will depend on more than just government handouts. Market dynamics, technological breakthroughs, regulatory shifts, and geopolitical currents will all play a role. The real danger is that political posturing could lead to short-sighted decisions that undermine America's position as a global leader in technology and exploration. Here is the deeper truth. The debate over subsidies is not just about dollars and cents. It is about who gets to write the rules of the future. As Musk and Trump battle for control of America's innovation agenda, the outcome could reshape not just one industry, but the entire economic landscape for decades to come. So, what do you think? Should government support for innovation be slashed to force companies to stand on their own, or do subsidies and incentives create the breakthroughs that move society forward? Is Musk right to call for an end to all government backing, or is Trump correct in warning that unchecked subsidies are fueling a dangerous bubble? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analysis on global economics and technology. The next